My name is Burt Berge. I'm a retired Deputy Sheriff with Olmsted County. I was a Deputy Sheriff in Olmsted for 31 years and retired from that and got recruited to work part-time in the court system, where I still work as a bailiff there. I grew up originally in Moore County, which is southwest of here, or southwest of Sturtville. Come home after serving in the Army with Uncle Sam for a little over 3 years. I moved to Rochester, and a couple years later I got hired as a Deputy Sheriff with Olmsted County. I started in 1967. I think we had 12 deputies on the department when I started. We were kind of excited when Jack came to work for us. Obviously, I don't recall how many years I'd been here prior to him starting right offhand, but we thought he was going to bring some expertise. We knew he'd worked in a big prison, and I think it was in Illinois, if I remember right. And of course, he had a Marine background, so he never left that atmosphere or that attitude. It was always with him. He was always sharp. Never had seen him when his uniform wasn't just spit and polish and stuff. But Jack and I and some of the other group, we went on some fishing trips together. Jack is the one that convinced me that you can't tell the difference between perch and walleye when you deep fry them. We had a big fish fry at his house, I can think of at one time. Well, as I can recall, Jack was working what we called a power shift. I think he'd come to work at 8 o'clock and work till 4 in the morning. I was working in my shift. I was a supervisor at one of the shifts at that time. I worked from 2 to 10, and I recall that evening, we had a pretty active day that day, a number of things going on. And obviously this time of year, so it was nice weather. I met Jack in the garage when he was coming in. I was filling up my car and getting ready to the end of the shift, and he was going on shift. It was the first day that he'd come back after being on vacation, as I recall. He'd borrowed some camping equipment from me to take when he was on his vacation and returned it to me that night. And we discussed the trip he'd had on vacation and stuff. It was one of the first camping trips he did with his family. We talked for quite a while about it and so forth. I went home, I got done at 10 o'clock and went home, and I think shortly after I went to bed, I'm thinking, getting on toward midnight, I got a phone call that he had just been shot at Apache Mall and asking me to come back to work right away. The supervisor on duty immediately went to the sheriff's home to notify him, and I took over with a couple of the detectives, and we started looking for people and what was going on with it, you know. I didn't go directly out to the mall. We started going places where we thought the person that did this, we would find him, because we knew when he did it, the person that actually shot him, in plain English, and then stole the squad car and took off and drove around the backside of where McDonald's is now at the mall, and eventually dumped it in the creek. And we got a call saying that the person that did this was supposedly living up in Goodhue County, or up just on the other side of Pine Island. And a little while later, they told us that what had happened, he'd been renting a home out in one of these farm places where the farmer just rented out the building site. And we got to the second one, and obviously were able to apprehend him there. I was there. I was in the car that brought him back to put him in jail. In 1977, this is something that happened in California or Chicago, or things didn't happen. Unfortunately, a couple months, or no, that was probably about 4 months after I started, the city of Rochester had a police officer killed out in the north end of Rochester by a bowling alley. So I'd been through some of the things that I knew happened, and I think the attitude from all of us, basically, here we were fortunate. We knew the person was in custody, so it wasn't that you're worried about what's going to happen, but it woke you up. These things don't happen just in the movies, and it isn't something you just read in the news about. It could happen here in little Olmsted County, so to speak. We didn't have any of the counseling things. We didn't have any of the organizations now, like people like our sheriff that goes to all these things and helps support. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff. And I suppose it's things like this that cause those things to be organized, I'm sure. Well, just remember, we're out there doing these things for the public. We're laying it down, and we're no different than anybody else. We got families we got to go home to at the end of the day. We got things that we want to do, aims and goals and so forth, and we enjoy what we're doing. for fellow officers and people that are working nowadays. Keep in mind that Jack made all of us become a better officer, I think. He was outstanding in everything he did, and because of his taking of his life, I think it made us all stronger in some ways too. And it's something we've never forgot, obviously. And it kind of falls in place with what we're trying to do right now, or getting the law enforcement memorial for Southeast Minnesota built and so forth down at Soldiers Field that we're working on. I happen to be on the committee that's developing that. But the idea, we don't want this to be forgotten. This happened. And for the family's sake and for the rest of us, we don't want to just forget this happened. And that's why they set up these memorials. And I think every officer gets something out of this. You see the memorial, you can see when we have our annual memorial service and stuff, the people that show up. It means something to all of us, by all means, that they haven't forgot it. Hey, that could be me laying there, you know.